What's happening,
Yeah,
everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of Talk Nerdy with me. I'm your host, Nicholas Merrington, and I am joined by James Creel once again. How you doing, James?
yeah, pretty good. Had a little bit of an annoyance at work today, but otherwise it wasn't bad.
Some NDA
One
stuff,
cut.
I imagine.
Yeah, just some annoying stuff that I had to test.
Oh, okay, yeah. I feel you. But other than that, you good?
Of course you do. Yeah, I'm not
with
bad.
my
I
9
had
to
a pie
5
for
job as
supper.
well.
I had a pie for supper, so I'm pretty satisfied.
Well, we're glad you're satisfied, and hopefully we'll be satisfied too when we talk all about video games, because of course this is the Talk Nerdy with Me podcast, the show that revolves around, you guessed it, video games. Join us as we chat, discuss, and argue about all the things we love about video games, and be a part of the show. You can write in with a topic, a question, or an answer to the email address talknerdywithme21@gmail.com. And remember that you can also go follow us over on Instagram at Talk Nerdy With Me Podcast. This week, we're going to be going over two main topics. We're going to be talking a little bit about what we've been playing, and then we're going to jump into a bit of a discussion around games from our childhood that we didn't think were that bad. But we'll get there when we get there. But first, we're going to start with a little icebreaker. And so, James, I put it to you first. If you were stuck on a desert island and could have one game with you, what game would you choose? And a little bit of a restriction is that you can't use online games, basically. So, James, what would you pick?
After other episodes, I wonder what it might be. Well, it's likely going to be The Witcher 3 or Persona 5 again. Obviously, Persona 5 is subject to change to Persona 5 Royale when I finally buy and play that, because it'll be longer, so thus, Trapped on Desert Island, the longer the better.
But what would you do if you finished it? Is it replayable for you?
Yeah, because you can always play it on higher difficulties on some ways, and then as well it's got a lot of personas to collect, so just to be able to 100% the game, you'd probably have to play through it like 3 times.
So wait, so your decision is Persona, not Witcher?
It's either one.
Okay.
It's hard to say because both of them are my favorites, and I don't know how do you pick between your favorites? If you had a child and had to pick your favorite, could you?
No one's ever picked a favorite child in their life. It's not a real thing, so I don't even think it's a viable option.
I'd say ask your parents. I'm an only child. It's kind of hard for mine. Yours could answer. You have siblings.
Nice, but I back you. My answer would actually be, you might not see this coming, it'd actually be the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim. And I took that from a point of view of, first of all, I've never finished the game, so I don't even know what the story of that game is. Second of all, it obviously has a lot of replayability. You can play it in different ways, and I feel like if I was stuck on an island, that's a game that I'd at least be okay with replaying. Because The Witcher, to me, is amazing, but after playing it 2 or 3 times, I'd probably be a bit too familiar with it, whereas Skyrim here, like, you can play it for like 200 plus hours and still see stuff for the first time.
Because it's got so many glitches.
Exactly. And
you're not necessarily seeing good things.
They're not glitches, they're features. And that's the other point I was going to make, is the game has cheats and mods, which I think would be fun to mess with. I don't know how I'd find the codes if I was stuck on a desert island. But
I was about to say, it also depends. It also very much depends on whether you're on console or PC. Because then if you want mods, they're paid through the Bethesda Creation Club, that lovely service they gave us that everyone hates.
Oh, you mean the one that came out and then everyone forgot about because you had to make a Square Enix account after that?
Bethesda. Square Enix is a separate company.
I know. I'm trying to say that Square Enix account's also a bit of a mission as well.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah,
it's fine.
But no, the Square Enix account doesn't charge you money to get content that other people, not the Square Enix, made.
True. But
nevertheless,
I'll be playing a version that has cheats in, probably the PC version. So I'll definitely be sorted. But anyway, we're going to jump straight into the show, and we're going to start off with what have we been playing. So James, I'm going to throw this over to you first. What have you been playing recently?
I've actually finally gotten back to South Park: The Fractured But Whole on my Switch. So that was fun. I'm at a part where we know who the main villain is. I'm nearing the end, I think. I fought mutant sixth graders and cats with multiple asses, which are 2 types of enemies in this game. So it's suitably South Park weirdness. I also had to make the choice where you have to choose to either kill your mother or your father. You can't get around it. You either kill your father by having his head removed with a laser, or you pull your mom's arm off.
Hectic.
South Park is twisted.
And what do you think of the changing gameplay? Do you prefer this kind of gameplay compared to the Stick of Truth's turn-based or more?
It's also turn-based, but this is turn-based with a grid, so you can actually move around. I think this is better, but I preferred the setting of the fantasy. Okay. I think I preferred the fantasy setting more, but this is definitely a much more refined combat system.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, nice.
Setting-wise, I like the fantasy. I just think a fantasy RPG is suited, just more classic and suited better.
Yeah. Is that all you've been playing?
Yeah, because I was binging Lucifer the other days.
Nice. I've been playing...
And what about you?
I've been playing a little bit of Fall Guys. I did ask you last night if you wanted to play, and you said no.
That's because busy with South Park.
But anyway, I've been playing some Fall Guys. I can't ever find myself playing more than like 2 matches in a row before wanting to do something else. Maybe if I played with friends, it'd be a bit more fun. But from what I've played, I've really enjoyed it. Still never won a match.
Same.
A lot of the mini games suck, but some of them are also definitely really fun. But it's also like it feels like just good fun, and it feels like something that you probably can be good at, but I don't understand how you can get good at it because it's so like physicsy based, especially on the races.
It's not just that; it's also pure luck based. Like especially that DoorDash one.
Yes,
that DoorDash one is 100% chance.
No,
I think the only skill to it is not being at the very front, but not being at the very back. But at the same time, there's no real skill to that game. It is pure luck.
But I think I've realized if you look closely at the doors, you can actually see a slight gap between the door and the like wall connecting it if you look very carefully. And it is usually right. So I'll carry on doing some investigating and I'll report back when I figure out if that is a real thing. But other than that, I also just want to give a shout out to Bloodborne because I finished Ghost of Tsushima and I don't know what I want to play next, like what game I want to commit to fully. And
Resi 7.
So I was like, all right, I'm just going to jump into Bloodborne, and I remembered that I was stuck on the Blood-Starved Beast. I don't know if you ever got to him. And
no, I beat Father Gascoigne, and I just stopped there because I got new games.
Gascoigne, yeah, something like that. Anyway, and I remembered I was still at the Blood-Starved Beast, and I fought him once, and I got him down, like, say this is his health bar. I got him down to, like, there, and I then died because I ran out of antidotes because he always sprays poison at you, and then you have, like, a little meter of, like, you'll take damage while this meter's running low, from poison. Anyway, and then when I died, I had no antidotes and no blood vials, so I was going to, like, have to go farm them from just the normal enemies in the world. And I was like, nah, I don't feel like that right now. I'll come back again another time, so I left straight away. But anyway, I just wanted to give that game a shout-out. But I haven't decided what my next game I'm going to commit to is.
Go back to Persona 5 or play Resi 7 because that's at least short and you can finish that before Avengers if you decide to get Avengers.
Very true, very true. I have decided to get Avengers. Breaking news for yourself, for you. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I get it too then by free, by game sharing. No, then play Resi 7. Resi 7's like Resi 2. It's probably like a 20, 30 hour experience max.
Is it? That's still pretty long though.
Yeah, but it's linear. So, I mean, you can get through it a lot faster. I mean, I watched Jacksepticeye play it in maybe 8 videos, and each was 2.5, 3 hours. So, about 20 hours or less, depending. Yeah. I can't remember exactly, but I barely remember what happened, thankfully, so I can experience it fresh. But it's not long.
Okay, cool.
It's similar length to Resi 2. I'd say.
I'll definitely consider it. I'll let you know what I end up deciding to play. But I think for now, I'll just probably be messing around in some Fall Guys and maybe carrying on trying to get the Ghost of Tsushima Platinum. But I just don't really feel like going and just grinding out side missions just yet.
That's fair. Thankfully I did them during the main quest. That really helps a lot.
Anyway, so that's all we've been playing this week. Not much to report back there, but we'll definitely get back to you in the weeks to come, especially with Marvel's Avengers coming out, and we'll have a lot to talk about there. But next up, we're going to go to our topic of the show, and this week we are talking about games from our childhood we didn't think were that bad. And this is quite a broad topic. We're just going to be shouting out games that we loved from our childhood that we thought were really good, and these games could have either been very bad in reality or in fact good. So we're just going to kind of bounce back and forth and name some games we loved from our childhood, and mine happen to all be from the PlayStation 2 generation, but I'm sure you'll see James's from a few different consoles. But James, I'll throw it to you first. What is a game from your childhood that you loved and either turns out is really good or turns out is really bad?
It's not bad, It's probably one of the ones I remember from my childhood. I never had a PS2, so I actually played this at a friend's house or at a few different friends' house. Because most of my friends had PS2s, but they weirdly didn't have any of the original Crash Bandicoot games. They all had only the Wrath of Cortex,
Me too.
which was the first non-Naughty Dog one. So one of the ones from my childhood that I really liked that actually isn't that bad. That was like the last okay Crash before it just slid downhill thanks to Activision. So I'd say Wrath of Cortex was probably one of them. But obviously never finished it because I just played it at friends' houses and we never played that much. We just played like in short bursts. We played the game and we just never played it like to finish it. So I've never gotten that far in it. But I always thought it was a decent game, and retroactively looking at reviews and opinions on it, people also seem to agree with that. So, I mean, I enjoyed it as a kid, and I guess people still enjoy it now.
I also had I have that game still, and I never finished it. I think I got to like, it kind of worked like Mario. There was like worlds, and within each world there was like levels, whatever, like usually 5 levels in a boss fight. I also never finished it. I found it very difficult, but I also just wasn't used to those kind of platformers. And obviously it had this similar to like Mario, like, you know, you had this many lives, and if you ran out of lives, you had to restart the entire level. So I found that quite tough as a kid. So I also never finished it, funny enough. But yeah, my first entry is a game that you mentioned on, I think, the second episode of the podcast, which is Ben 10 Protector of Earth.
That was one of mine as well. So
yeah, I played it on the PS2, and it was so much fun. I remember. I don't know if it was you. I think it was someone else, but I saw they had the game on PSP, and I didn't have a PSP, and I really wish. Well, I was like, oh, Mom, Dad, can I please have a PSP just because I wanted this Ben 10 game? And they were like, no. I was like, oh. And I didn't know it was on PlayStation 2 at the time. And I remember on Christmas waking up and unwrapping my present, and it was Ben 10 Protective Earth. And I was like, what? Did my parents put the game on PlayStation for me? I didn't understand how video games worked at the time. And I was like, no ways. And I went and popped it in. And I was so excited. I was like, oh,
was widespread.
The game was so much fun. I 100%ed the entire game. Like, I collected everything that could be collected. I still remember the like whole map of the United States that you traveled around, you know, and you moved from the West Coast to the East Coast. But
I do not remember it in that detail, I'm going to be honest.
But the thing that I was so upset about, I remember, is the fact that it's called Ben 10 and they only give you 5 aliens for some silly reason. And of
Forearms, Cannon Bolt,
Wildvine,
Heat
Blast, and Accelerate.
Yeah, Heat Blast and Accelerate. Yeah, that was it.
And the only one I actually wanted was Diamond Head, and he wasn't in the game. So I thought they were going to, like, there was a cheat in the game, somehow to unlock them. I did so much research, never found anything. But
me too.
Did really enjoy my time I had with that game.
Weirdly, I really wanted Stinkfly, because I just thought it'd be fun to have a character that could fly compared to all the others. Yeah, like, it just felt like such a useful one. And I'm just like,
Blast
why?
was allowed to fly like he does in the series, you know? Where he, like, rides on a flame ball.
Oh, the physics of that.
What game have you got up next, James?
So, next that I can think of was, it's terrible. The Bakugan Battle Brawlers game.
I got it too. I played on PS2.
With the Wii, you would, like, it was so realistic because you could take the controller and you could throw your Bakugan by, like, holding in B and then letting go.
Yeah.
And then you had to do that weird, I think it was with the nunchuck, or it might have been with motion controls, but you got to direct them.
Yes, you had to steer them around.
To try and get them onto certain cards. And, like, it was at least faithful enough to it that you did kind of play it like a strategy game kind of thing. And if I remember right, it wasn't like this new one where you're basically like brawling you're just making them be giant fights, just punching each other. No, so it was that game, and I was like, it looked terrible. I'm pretty sure that in my mind it looked good, but it probably looked terrible, and it probably looks even worse today. And because I have it on Wii, it probably looks even worse than any other version. Yes, exactly. No, so it was probably that game, but it was. I remember getting that for Christmas, and I think my parents got annoyed because I didn't leave like the sitting room for like 5 hours. I barely left for food.
Yeah, I
was having so much fun with that.
I'm gonna shout out that game as well. It's also on my list. Like, I had way too much fun with it, and I totally agree. If you think about it now, the actual gameplay of that game is throwing the ball and steering the Bakugan around the map before he lands on the card. Like there was like elemental levels, like arenas. So for instance, like a water one where there's like waterfalls and stuff, and you shoot your Bakugan like not at the card where it's meant to land. You shoot him like up in the air, and you have to like steer him through and pick up boosts and pick up coins.
Yeah, that was it. There was those perk things that you could pick up in the middle of the map.
And then you would land. Like, that was and then you would land on the card, and if you hit the bad Bakugan or the opponent's Bakugan hard enough, they would take damage before the battle even starts. And then the battle was just like a quick time event kind of button mashy thing. It would be like press X like it's a rhythm game, or spin the analogs as quickly as you can, or something like that. And like there wasn't much to it, but it had like a fun story. I remember we got our own Bakugan. I think his name was Leonidas, and you could pick his element.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, and then it was kind of like had its own little simple story, which was lots of fun, especially at that age, which like to me that game was 10 out of 10 at the time, you know, but looking back on it I agree. Wow.
Yeah, at the time.
But
not even nostalgia goggles can save that one.
No, not at all. And I remember you got the sequel on Wii, I'm pretty sure, the New Vestroya or something.
Battle for Vestroya, I think it was. And in that one, I think you actually play as the Bakugan when you fight with them.
Yeah, I remember watching
and that was just worse. It wasn't that much fun. Because the whole point of it was like strategy. You were like, use this attack, and like the placement of the cards from the series mattered, and the ability cards, and like it's just nothing. It was like upsetting.
Yeah. Just this quick note for those of you who don't know what Bakugan is. It was kind of like I'd almost describe it as like a ripoff of Pokemon, where instead
of more popular in the West than in the East, though.
Yeah, and it was basically little balls that would land on the cards and open up, and they would kind of look like a monster, and then a monster would emerge out of them, like a real monster, and then it would be monsters fighting against each other. So you can imagine Pokemon, but instead of Pokeballs and the Pokemon being inside, the ball is the Bakugan, is the monster itself. But yeah, it's a whole thing. So go Google it if you are interested. But other than that, my next...
It wasn't a bad series overall,
I loved the series. Absolutely
the first season, at least. The first season was pretty good.
The first show, Bakugan Battle Brawlers, the whole actual show, because then they went to New Vestroya after that. That's where it got a bit weird.
But those are considered season 2 and then season 3.
They? Okay.
Yeah, season 3 ended up with them in a virtual world on Earth. The one kid whose parents are super rich made a virtual Bakugan brawling place, so very few people still had real Bakugan. Most of them were let free onto New Vestroya, except for the ones that are already bonded with someone or were enslaved or something, came there. So everyone's Bakugan were virtual, and it was just really weird. Like, I still think the first was the best. But sorry, carry on.
Anyway, the next game I want to bring out is another PS2 game, and everyone talks about, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. I used to play that as a kid. Nah. For me, this is where it's really at. I used to play Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure. Have you ever heard of this, James?
No, never once.
You can give it a Google if you want, but basically it is Tony Hawk Pro Skater. It was made by Toys for Bob and published by Activision, but not made by the people who made Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. But the game was set in all the Disney worlds. It was so cool. So the first main map, you can create a character first of all, or you can play as Disney characters. And there's 3 movie worlds that you could go to and skate in. There was Tarzan, Lion King, and Toy Story. But you would always start in this ripoff of Hollywood, I think called Ollywood. And you could ride around there and like do tricks or whatever. And there was like I think there was a McDonald's, not even a ripoff, like there was a McDonald's, and there was like a supermarket and a movie theater and all this stuff. And then you would go around the world and there'd be portals to the different Disney worlds. So for instance, a portal takes you to Andy's room from Toy Story, or to the Elephant Graveyard from The Lion King. And it was just a skateboarding game. Location. But it was so much fun. And then like if you played as like Simba, his skateboard was like a log that you would just kind of stand on, no wheels, and you could just ride around and stuff. It was so cool. So yeah, that was definitely a game that I'm pretty sure if I were to pop back in today would still be as good. And I was actually looking for the disc the other day, and I just can't find it. I can find every other PS2 game, but I imagine that it would still hold up today. I'd put my money on it.
I'm surprised you haven't listed a sports game yet, if I'm being honest.
I was going to maybe put like Rugby 08 on here, but I was like, that's a
I was
game
literally going to say Rugby 08 as my guess for what would be a sports game.
But the thing is, that's not a game from my childhood because I still play it today. So I don't even consider calling that out when people are like, what game did you used to play? Like, I still play it. If I watch a rugby match, I'll be in that hype mode, and I need to go pop it into the PS2 and put on whoever just played the match, but with their 2007 team selections.
That must be a throwback for you to see the old teams. Wouldn't be for me because I don't even know the current teams. So hell if I'd even know the old ones.
What game you got up next, James?
I'm trying to think what might be. So another one that was fun as a kid, but probably was really bad, was one of the SingStar games, but not a mainline one. The High School Musical 2 SingStar game.
Oh, yes.
That was like at the time, like as a kid, like in all honesty, High School Musical was like, it was good as a kid. I'm not going to lie. Looking back on it now, it's terrible. High School Musical is not that great as a movie now, but it was good as a kid. And I was like, yeah, and the songs were catchy. I remember having the actual CDs because, who streamed music back then?
Who could stream music?
Actually, that's a fair point too. Who knew what smartphones were? Yeah, so I actually I enjoyed the music, and I remember playing it with friends, and I'm just like, personally, I know I'm absolutely tone deaf, so I just want to apologize to any friend that had to be there while we played that. But otherwise, it was just a SingStar game, and it had High School Musical song. So it was it was fun at the time, but considering I don't know how well those songs have aged, I would not necessarily want to go back to it.
And if I remember correctly, when the version I had, when you listen to the song, there was a really cheaply done animation of the song, of them dancing to it. It's it didn't show clips from the movie. It was two people. One was meant to look like Troy, one was meant to look like Gabriella dancing, but very stiff, kind of like a very bad version of Just Dance.
I think so. I need to check that. It's been way too long.
Yeah, but I had a different one. I had on PS2, I had SingStar High School Musical. I can't remember the name, but it had songs from all the movies. It was a name for just in general High School Musical. So it had the most famous songs across all three movies.
Huh. I can't think of many gigantic songs that came out of the third one. So the most iconic ones probably came out of the first movie, and then the second movie had that
had Bet on It,
Work It Out song,
and
Bet on It. Fabulous.
I'm trying to think the third movie. Now that I'm on the spot, I'm not going to remember, but I know all the songs. I just can't remember.
The Boys Are Back song is the only one I can remember.
It had Scream. It had, I can't remember what it's called, the opening song in High School Musical 3, where they playing basketball as well. I can't remember now. But
it wasn't a remake. It wasn't a redo of Get Your Head in the Game from the first one, was it?
No. It was a totally new song. It was saying oh, my word. Now that I'm on the spot, I'll think about it while you're talking maybe, and then I'll let you know. But anyway.
I'm still going to say it's impressive if you can remember all of the High School Musical
I still got some of the songs on my phone today. It's always got to keep up,
Rolling this together is actually not bad.
Exactly. And my next game I want to shout out is it's also on the PS2, and it is basically a Super Smash Bros. Ripoff. It's called Shrek Super Slam. I don't know if you've ever heard of this.
I think I may have played it at a Spur or a Panarotti's or
it was similar to it was more of it was a 3D kind of Super Smash Bros. Brawler game with all Shrek characters. So first of all, you could just play normal matches. You could play Shrek, Donkey, Puss in Boots.
Shrek 1 or 2? Okay, Puss in Boots, so
Shrek,
2.
Shrek 2, because it had Prince Charming, it had Pinocchio, and it had Quasimodo. For some reason, I don't know which movie he was in. But anyway, the game had a little story mode, which was so cool. It was similar to the Spirits mode, or no, what is the story of light, the light, or the story mode in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, where you move through little stages, and each stage has a thing about it of you face off a different opponent, but it'll be a little buff on the opponent or on you during the match, just to make it a bit different and give some variety. And then there would be certain ones where it's if you complete these 5 fights, then you unlock a new character like the Black Knight or Pinocchio or whoever it was, or the Big Bad Wolf or whatever. But that game was so much fun, and I still remember my brother and I would alternate trying to unlock all the characters. So I would be at a piano lesson or something, and then I'd be leaving and I'd walk past him on the stairs as he went to the piano lesson. I was going home, and he'd be like, hey, I just unlocked blah blah blah, and now I'm only 2 fights away from getting whoever, Quasimodo, and then I'll be like, okay, cool, I'll go sort him out, and I'd go home, get on the PS2, and we just jam. It was so much fun, and only like today, when thinking about the game, I realized it's actually just a Super Smash Bros. Ripoff, basically, but it was still lots of fun.
There's quite a few of Super Smash Bros. Ripoffs. There's also that PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale.
Yes. Oh my word.
And Sony gave up Snake to Super Smash Brothers, so their own game had to use Raiden.
Do you have any other games?
I mean, I could shout out some of the ones that we always played at like Spurs and or St. Elmo's and stuff. Like a lot of the times Crash Team Racing, because they all had PS2s there. So Crash Team Racing was often always there on those PS2s. And I mean, still kind of childhood, you can easily shout out the Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort games. Those are kind of like classics of like...
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, my 10s and just upwards, if you want to put it into that bit of childhood. Just to interrupt you
quick, the song for the beginning of High School Musical 3 is called Now or Never. I did have to Google it, but it's Now or Never. Just so you know.
I can't even picture it at all. Like, I have zero recollection of that song.
Nice. But like, speaking of like Spur and going there and playing whatever's on the PlayStations, for some reason, I remember so well that two specific games are always in Spur. The one was this weird game about horses where you could just ride horses around and groom them and stuff. But the other game, they always had the Bee Movie game. And I don't know why. And I just remember being inside the inside the nest, or whatever you call it, and driving around. It was so much fun.
I remember that. The other one I remember was that I eventually actually got myself was Star Wars Connect on the Xbox 360, where it had pod racing, running around as a giant Rancor, a story mode where you played as a Jedi that was so wonky, and a ripoff of Just Dance, where all of the songs were modern pop songs remixed to be Star Wars. The most famous one being Jason Derulo, I think it is, his song Solo.
Yeah, but Han Solo.
It's a Raiden Solo, it's I'm Han Solo. And it's so cringy, but it's actually weirdly addictively fun because the song is catchy.
And it was so worth it, I'm sure, for you, because you got the R2-D2 Xbox out of it.
Yeah, like I bought it literally to get that game and the R2-D2 themed everything and the C-3PO controller.
Yeah. I remember that. It was also so much fun.
How about, can I ask one question to just piggyback off of this right before I assume we're going to be ending soon because of time?
Yeah, sure.
What was the game that ended your childhood and brought you into the sphere of gaming we're in now, basically, being what you'd consider more of a actual gamer in like the whole knowing everything, seeing the big franchises that were actually big franchises, not what we thought were.
Yeah, well, the game that did that for me wasn't even a big franchise, but it was, I said, one of my favorite games from my childhood. It was Skylanders Spyro's Adventure, which I owe to just because it was still AAA, and just the investment I had in that game because of collecting the characters, and the characters came out like months apart, so you always came back to it. And that was the first time I ever got involved in a game where I did research online for it, like a lot of research. And by doing that, I started to find out about other games, and then I started to realize like the difference between a AAA game and a licensed game. And then I started to move into that because I think Skylanders Spyro's Adventure was one of my last games on the Wii before I moved over to the Xbox 360, which is where I started playing more online games, stuff like Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto. So I'd say Skylanders was my turning point. And just proof of that is like, I remember like the year before Skylanders, the two games on Wii I got was Iron Man 2 on the Wii.
Those Iron Man games are horrible.
And the Last Airbender movie game on the Wii. And
I didn't get the movies game. I got the series game.
Is it? So no, I got the movie one. So you could only play as Angel Zuko, and it was not great. But at the time, I thought it was good, thinking, oh, this is what games are. And then I played Skylanders Spyro's Adventure, and I was like, this game feels like it has almost more love put into it for some reason. And then I was like, oh my word, there's a difference between a AAA game and a licensed game. And now I know.
Makes so much more sense.
And you?
For me, I definitely thought that going through... I was the same as you. Skylanders started it. Mm-hmm. But then when I got my Xbox, I first got the Halo games, but those were just like, everyone had kind of heard of Halo, and it was like always marketed everywhere in terms of Xbox. So like you always knew of it. The first one that actually got me big into gaming probably was Assassin's Creed 3. I played at a friend's house, really enjoyed it. And then I ended up borrowing it from a friend, got into it, and I got so obsessed that I searched everything. And then I was like, oh my gosh, it's got a 3 in it. Then I searched the titles and realized, wait, but there's not just 2 that are before this game, there's 4. So numbering went out the window long ago in that series. Then I binged 4 games, and thanks to that game and searching stuff about Assassin's Creed, I learned of AC4 coming out, and that got me to watch my first E3. And so that got me into like actually being up to date with gaming all the time, and then learning like from E3 about all the big games, all the big publishers. And so for me, it kind of goes from like Skylanders to Halo to AC to Assassin's Creed properly pulling me in. Yeah. And I'm like, it's interesting to see like how the games just immediately go that what pulls you in goes from like childish to then just like military.
That's so true.
It's just like as soon as you get past a certain age group, there's not many games that aren't highly violent.
Yes. And I remember like, also, I was the same of like when I came over to the Xbox 360, I can't remember if there was a defining game that made me almost mature as a gamer, but I also started following E3 with you, and the first game from an E3 that got me so excited was Watch Dogs. And I think we learned about that when we were both probably in grade 9 or something, and it only came out in, 2014?
The first E3 we would have watched would have been 2012, and that was the first showing of Watch Dogs.
Yeah, so I remember seeing this game and just being like, what is this? And I got so obsessed with that game. That was the first ever AAA game that I followed from announcement to release. I remember watching every single video I could on it, checking out every E3, and eventually the game coming out. And I think I got it right at the end of the Xbox 360 generation while you got it on the PS4. Yes, and I remember so clearly like getting the game. It was during exams, so mom was like, "Okay, you can buy the game, but I'm going to keep it and give it to you when you're done exams." And then she went and picked it up for me, and I was like studying, and I was like, "Mom, can I just see the box? I just want to smell it. Like, I just want to touch it." She's like, "No, you're going to want to play it." I was like, "Please." Then she told me where it was. So when I checked out, I was like looking. I was like, "Mom, can I please just open it? I just want to play it." She's like, "No, because this is just going to lead to the next, and then you're going to play." And I was like, "Fine." Because I only had like 2 exams left, whatever. And then I remember finishing exams.
Can I just have one step? Just one hit.
Exactly. And I remember finishing exams and just putting it straight in the Xbox and playing it. And I was like, wow, this is truly AAA and this looks amazing. And then I went to your house and you had the PS4 version. I looked at yours and I was like, And then I went back to mine. I was like, yeah, something's wrong here. This does not look good, actually.
And then we finally watched the video reactions that compared the game to the E3 2012 trailer. And we were like, well, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Still fun, though.
So actually, I'd actually shout out that Watch Dogs might have actually been another very important game in my maturing as a gamer. So Skylanders being the first time I realized AAA was different to licensed games. And Watch Dogs was the first AAA game that I basically anticipated, got loved, and kind of changed how I look at AAA games since then.
Yeah. No, I'd say mine was AC4, Assassin's Creed 4, just because that was the game that released immediately that year after AC3. Wait, no, sorry, the first E3 we wouldn't have watched 2012, because Assassin's Creed 3 was already out. We would have watched 2013 was our first one.
Yes, and then we probably look back at the gameplay of Watch Dogs from 2012. Because I'm sure it got announced in 2012.
I think the first Watch Dog I think it was 2012, the first Watch Dogs reveal.
Yeah. Anyway, I just got one more game I just want to give a quick shout out to from my childhood, which is a game that is, I think people still think good today. And that's Ratchet & Clank 3 on the PS2, which I really enjoyed.
Which one is that? Was that Up Your Arsenal?
No, it's just Ratchet & Clank 3. Didn't have any other.
Sorry, I just really wanted an excuse to say that title.
But I had so much fun with it. I never finished it because it got too hard for me, but the multiplayer in it was lots of fun for like playing split screen with a friend. But the coolest part was if you were in the start menu and you pressed all the triggers and trigger buttons, so R1, L1, R2, L2 at the same time, it unlocked a Sly Cooper demo. And then it was the only time I've ever been able to play Sly because I never owned one of those games. And I would play that demo over and over again just because it was so much fun. So yeah, that game was very memorable for me. But yeah, that wraps up my list. James, did you have any other you wanted to mention?
No, I shouted out those those last few ones that I said, which was the Wii Sports and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, those are just some of the games that we played in our childhood and other people think are good or very bad today, but we really enjoyed nonetheless, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to know what games you guys played in your childhood that you really enjoyed and that maybe you don't think hold up so well, or you are still good to this day. Please let me know by emailing us at the email address talknerdywithme21@gmail.com, or you can comment on the YouTube video down below. And that wraps up episode 4 of the Talk Nerdy With Me podcast. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope you enjoyed the show. And remember, you can listen to this podcast on YouTube as well as on most podcast services. We're still waiting to get verified by Apple Podcasts, but I'll definitely be making an announcement when that happens.
I need to make sure we're not going to try sue them like Epic.
Exactly. And remember, you can follow us on Instagram at Talk Nerdy With Me podcast. And as I said, please write in with any questions, topics, or answers you want on the show. And James, I just want to thank you again for joining me.
You're welcome. I love how the script still says that wraps up episode 2.
No, I need to change it.
You've still never updated your outro.
I know. But anyway, at least I didn't mess it up with how I said it.
Just change it to this wraps up episode, insert number here.
Okay,
and then forever you're okay.
Put a hash. But the thing is, this is the actual script. I need to go change it in the template. And I never remember.
You made a template?
James, I'm professional. Don't you know I'm starting a company here? Come on. Bugsnax, if you want to send me a code, you can send it to talknerdwithme21@gmail.com. Thank you. But other than that,
Once
that wraps
again,
up.
Twitter harassment will work a lot better.
But that wraps up episode 4 of the Talk Nerdy With Me podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next week. Cheers.
See ya.